Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for our game preview Inside the Birds podcast. It's week 3, and the Eagles really need to shake off this Monday night loss to the Atlanta Falcons in the worst way possible. And maybe it's not the best thing, Adam, that they're going to a historically difficult place to play, and they're going to face an opponent that might be the hottest opponent right now in the NFL, and the New Orleans Saints, who have dropped 40 burgers on both of their first two opponents, and they've also been playing some pretty good D. So this should be a pretty interesting matchup for us to preview in this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, could they be playing the Patriots this week? Who can't score?
Anybody.
Now they run into a buzzsaw, as a friend of mine called them. See,
Mhm.
the thing is about the NFL, unlike any other sport, just when you think, like, we'll preview the game, as you said. We'll talk to Cosell on Sunday when we preview the game with him, and I can't wait because he's got some great information on the Saints. But based on the way the Eagles have played so far, very inconsistent, run defense terrible. We'll add a little bit more from our last show to this show, and some issues that they're having. They've had some good things. Barkley's been phenomenal running the football. Might have stone hands, but catching it. But boy, he looks awesome as a runner. Line has been great, by the way. We need to talk about that. That's very encouraging, by the way. That is we have not mentioned that enough. That's been good. There's been some positives, but when you play a team like the Saints, that they've been re-energized by Clint Kubiak, Gary's son. Like it's very rare this early that you hear players talk like this guy's like the next coming of the great play caller. I mean, it's 2 games, for goodness sake.
No, right?
But they've been like, I mean, I read the quotes and from OTAs. Wow, they were like on it. I mean, the players know it. Players know. They know that Bobby Slowick, again, running a West Coast scheme. The West Coast offenses now are ruining defenses. They've got to manage on a lot of these defenses. But look, you never know when everybody picks one side, there's an upset. Although it's only a 3-point, the Saints are only a 3-point favorite. That stuns me. I would have had 5 or 6 based on what's happened with both teams. But you just never know. We know Hurts is a seasoned quarterback. Yes, he had a disappointing game, to say the least. He's always capable. Looks like they're not going to have A.J. Brown as we speak. We don't even know if they'll have him next week. But yet, believe it or not, folks, if they protect and Jalen gets his stuff together, they could absolutely win. The Saints are a world beater. They look good so far. They do. No doubt.
I agree. I mean, it would be, I think, a fallacy to judge the Eagles at their worst moment, and that last week, Monday night, might have been, and also to judge a team at its highest moment, which could be the Saints. It's not sustainable to average, the 43 points a game or whatever it is that they're averaging. And I think they scored on the 10 straight possessions and 12 of 16 overall. I mean, it's something ridiculous. It's video game stuff. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do want to go through something with you because you asked me a question, I think, on the last podcast, and I may have given you inaccurate information.
All right.
You asked me the last time the Eagles went down to New Orleans and won. I think I said 2000, but they actually did win in New Orleans in 2000, and I just had it in front of me. In New Orleans, they won in 2009. No, 2000. I'm sorry. I didn't give you incorrect information. It's been since the year 2000. So the last few, they played in 2019 in January in New Orleans. They lost 20-14. They played January 4th, 2014 in New Orleans. They lost 26-24. They played November 5th, 2012 in New Orleans. They lost 28-13. They played December 23rd, 2007 in New Orleans. They lost. This is where they won. I'm sorry. So it is correct. I was correct when I started this. In 2007, on December 23rd, they won 38-23. And that is their only win at the Superdome.
What year?
Since 2000. That was December 23rd, 2007. So it's still been 17 years, but it's been
bad. Yeah.
As far as how many games played since then, 3, and they've lost the last 3.
Yeah, and it's not like they played a ton, but we got the Sidney Jones game when Sean Payton told Peter King they were going to go after him.
Yeah.
Put in his Monday morning quarterback column. I couldn't believe that Sean gave Peter that stuff. He went on the record saying that, we were going to go after Sidney Jones. Holy smokes.
Yeah, that was a 48-7 loss.
That was bad. There were all sorts of guys who shouldn't have been playing. if I remember correctly, they had a lot of injury issues coming into that game, and they had some guys who shouldn't have been playing that week, and that was a massacre. It's tough to play there, as you were saying in the last show, man, and you've been in there, so have I. When they're good, the Saints, one of the top three home fields, there's no question in the National Football League. Now we know for a number of years that we're struggling,
Hmm.
but and we'll see. It's only 2 games, but I would expect it to be a raucous crowd. We'll see how Philadelphia represents there, but it's loud, man.
Yeah.
It's again one of those venues. It's hard to hear.
Yeah. In the bigger picture, they're 1-5 at the Superdome, playoffs included, in their last 6 games there, going back to 2000 and what I say, the 1-5 going back to 2006. So that's 18 years, 1-5 in the last 6 games in the Superdome. So we'll talk about that. We'll give you the preview here of the matchups. We'll get into some transactions that happened, some injuries, and then offense versus defense and vice versa. So we'll start with transactions. Really nothing major here. Practice squad move as the Eagles continue to play practice squad tango. They released the tight end from the practice squad, Kevin Folsch, for I think
Again,
the third time since the start of the season. And they signed, here's what's interesting. They signed, and is he an edge rusher, this
he is.
outside linebacker?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's hilarious.
How do you
His story's
pronounce his
hilarious.
last name?
I think it's Ane.
Okay.
It's a very odd spelling. Anenih.
Yeah, David and A. Okay.
Yeah. So now again, I look for the pronunciation. It's more of a guess.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the reason why they brought him in. He's one of these guys. I got a little intel. He's the kind of guy who looks good on tape. You see, wow, he's got some traits, but he's super raw. He was an undrafted free agent. This is crazy. Out of University of Houston just 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
He's been on 6 teams in less than 3 years. Never played an NFL game.
So clearly,
Yeah.
we see this all the time with traits-based players. Like people fall in, like with the Eagles and Brandon Smith, it's similar. Like you're just
Yeah.
signing a guy who's got wonderful traits, but nobody, then he comes into your program and you see that he needs a lot of work, and then he becomes expendable as soon as you need to open up a roster spot.
Titans, Steelers, Falcons, Cardinals, Dolphins, Eagles. There's something they like. He's an edge rusher.
Mhm.
His college tape was intriguing, but he was one of these projects everybody knew he wouldn't be drafted. That you sign him, you hopefully no one else is in on him, you get him, then you see, oh boy, he's a real project. We're not going to keep him. And like 10 years ago, he could have been on maybe one or two teams, but the problem is the teams are just not patient anymore, and they move on. So even with expanded practice squads, that's what's really more disappointing for this guy.
Mhm.
So look, if he's here for about 6 or 7 weeks, we'll get his name right. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll see.
David, sorry, David. Yeah,
We'll call him David A for now.
David A. Yeah, it's
There you go, like
interesting.
Albert O. All
Oko
right.
Ebunam. Yeah, good.
There you go. So that's
Oh
it
my
for the
God.
transactions. Obviously, we'll see what kind of elevations they make. They don't have to elevate Nick Gates anymore
Nope.
because they signed him to the 53. EJ Jenkins, I believe, has 1 left. Paris Campbell has 2 left because he was elevated for the last game. It would shock me if Campbell wasn't elevated again because as we move into injuries, it doesn't appear that AJ Brown's going to be ready to go. You never rule anything out, but he did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. So he told Lisa Salters it was going to be a couple weeks, and it looks like it's going to not happen for him against the Saints.
Yeah, so he's not expected to play, and the question is because they have the week 5 bye, and we'll see if he works next week. He's first of all, he'll never play if he doesn't practice. He's got to get on at least get on the field in limited fashion just so that he can run.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that happens next week. But and I know it's a medical decision. It's not a coach's. The coaches have nothing to do with it. It's strictly medical.
Mm-hmm.
It's the getting the fluid out of the hamstring with a hamstring strain. I've talked to doctors about this stuff. It's real simple. You gotta if there's any blood, got to get that out. Fluid out. He's got to be able to run. Can't grab on his thigh again. He's got to be able to open it up. You can't have these things linger. So it's a problem. There's no doubt. Johnny Wilson, by the way, 2 straight practices, he didn't work. Yeah, he
Well, he's
needs
been
a
banged up quite a bit for
mm,
a guy who had an opportunity. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying. I mean, between
yeah.
the concussions and in training camp, right after things looked pretty good for him, and now he's got the
Yeah.
hamstring. That's tough.
Yeah, it's too bad. It doesn't help. And then now the positives, the guys that are removed off the injury report this week, they're not on it anymore. Fred Johnson with a thumb who was added last week. Tyler Steen was added late last week with the ankle not on it. And not that it matters. Devin White's off the injury report with the ankle. And now this is interesting, though he has a broken hand, doesn't mean it's healed, but he is not on the injury report. That is Isaiah Rodgers, who dressed last week. He was active but did not play.
Right.
Oh, Milt Williams too. He's off with that foot injury.
Yeah. Now the one we've got to sort of monitor here is CJ who was
Yeah.
not in practice on Thursday. So we'll have to see. It was a foot. It's a foot.
Added. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the one.
The old
Yeah.
pop-up injury because he was not on the injury report
Wednesday.
on Wednesday, right?
Yeah. So what happens is, guys, this is what happens typically. Something happens when the next morning, either when they have a pre-practice walkthrough, usually it happens there, or they're working out in the morning or after practice, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't put him on the injury report at 4 o'clock. That means he was good enough that he did everything and he wasn't hurt. Something happened. He didn't feel right. So today's a big day for him because let me tell you something. If he doesn't play, it's a position they have like no depth at all. It's
That would be bad. It would be very, very bad.
well, here's the thing, and Vic Fangio talked about this, so we could extrapolate a little bit. Right now, they're playing DeJean and nickel. He's a backup nickel to Maddox. Maddox, we know, was really a safety in training camp. So here's the question. Because DeJean barely played last week, even played less than he did in week 1. If Gardner Johnson can't play, are they really going to put Tristan McCullum in with the starters, really?
Yes.
Are you really going to start him?
Yes, they are.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
All
if
right,
you're not
well,
even playing DeJean at nickel, giving him a little bit of time there because he's just the backup and he's only the dime corner, then you're not going to be playing him full-time nickel and moving Avonte Maddox to safety. It's just not
I get that.
happening,
It's a big
you know?
sit, but I get that. I know, Ringo, by the way, played in the fourth quarter last week. Should
Mhm.
mention that. Yes, I agree. It would be a major step. That's like it's like you're skipping a step. You're going from, dime safety or
Right.
dime back to having your reps taken, cut down week 2. Then you're going to have them the full-time nickel. I get it. That's a tough thing.
I
But
think
McCollum's a starter.
you're barking up a good tree though. I would not see what that situation where DeJean would just take over nickel. But now the question is, would you move Maddox to safety in nickel packages, play Quignon inside and bring Isaiah Rodgers outside?
That's the other option. That's the old option. That was what they
Correct.
started with a month ago. Or
The old Coke is the new Coke, but then
Yeah,
you go back to
exactly.
the old Coke.
Oh, my man, the new Coke was so bad. I'm old enough to remember
It
it.
was awful.
Terrible. And I love it. There's I don't know if it's VH1, one of those channels would do, the retrospective of the dumb ideas.
Yeah.
That was bad. What were other ones? Real quick. That was a great one. New Coke was so stupid. There was some
That
really
was a
bad ones.
terrible idea. I don't know. I remember when Pepsi made fun of him though.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm for everyone. If you guys are old enough, you remember some stuff in the 80s and 90s.
I think it was a Super Bowl commercial for Pepsi where a guy walks into a store and he orders a Coke and the guy's like, "Well, which Coke?" He's like, "What do you mean which Coke?" He's like, "What do you want, the old Coke or the new Coke?"
I got it. One. Remember the ESPN phone when they came out with it was such a big deal. It was to nobody. It was awful. It just wasn't. They didn't develop it well enough.
Yeah,
and it got trashed. But just trying to remember. There's some other stuff. But yeah, this was new Coke. I don't know why the hell I thought that.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating. What the options they have because they're so deep at corner, which for the first time in I don't know how long,
right?
They really have the and honestly, if everybody's healthy. They have so many combinations of whatever they want to do. Like later in the season, when Vic gets this thing right, because right now it's not good. But once we're assuming the edge rushers will actually get to the quarterback since they haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
But once it gets rolling, man, this defense actually could be good. I know it's hard to say after you see this garbage they put together last week.
Well, I mentioned the Broncos last year looked like the worst defense in the history of the league. They have 70 points, and then by mid-November, they were actually starting to play like one of the better defenses.
But the Eagles' red zone defense is actually very competitive. I should mention that. Give them credit for that.
Yeah, They won
but
the game. They won the Packers game because of their red zone defense.
yeah, it's incredible. In fact, that remember we said the first two drives when they only gave up the 2 field goals. It's a miracle they're in this game.
Right.
You have to credit the defense, but the coaches have a lot. And Vic was pretty good in his Thursday press conference. It was a short press conference, but he was real honest. He's just got to do a better job of getting these guys to do what they want. And so he didn't mention his assistants,
Mhm.
but they have to do a better job as well.
Clearly. All right. The Saints are fairly healthy. Kalen Saunders, their defensive tackle, has been out with a calf. He's going to miss the game.
Yeah.
But they are probably hoping by now that Brian Brzee, their second-year defensive tackle, who I believe was he a first-round pick for them?
Yeah.
So-
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Out of Clemson, is ready to kind of. I mean, he has been starting, and they've been playing well on defense, so he'll continue to get the nod there. The big one is Marshawn Lattimore, very good corner when healthy, but he's constantly dealing with injuries. He's been out with a hamstring. The rookie Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama has been filling in for him, but he's listed as questionable, I believe, at the moment, right? Or, well, the injury final report's not out, but
Later
he's
today.
been out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So basically, Lattimore, since he was drafted in 2017, has had recurring hamstring problems. Like, in fact, he had them coming into the draft. It's it's just a problem. He just can't shake them. I don't know what it is. It's just bad. Now, yeah, right. So what they're looking to do right now is, and well, again, it depends what happens today with Lattimore. If Lattimore's out again, which is very possible, McKinstry would fill in.
Mhm.
And then you've got Adebo, Alontae Taylor's their nickel, and we'll find out who the well, we know it's Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, and McKinstry. Who's their dime corner? We'll find out. Now this got added Thursday. Will Harris, who came over from Detroit, who's one of the starting safeties, he now has a shin injury. So I remember Jordan Howden. Jordan Howden, number 31, used to be a starter. He doesn't start anymore.
Mhm.
I'm assuming he would be the guy to come in.
Yeah, with the
With
experience
that.
that he has, you would think.
Yeah, right. So, and he didn't practice Thursday. So we'll see what happens today. So there could not having Colin Saunders is not a big deal, but Marshawn Lattimore is a big deal. Dallas got behind so badly it didn't matter that he played. I mean, they could have put anyone out there apparently, but the bottom line is, it's it if it's too bad AJ Brown is not playing. It's just too bad.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they can't win. It makes it so much harder. And Hurts has got to be better, obviously. But man, I would have loved to have seen, because they'll play some man coverage. They'll play some man. We'll get you the man. We'll get to the man zone coverage numbers for Sunday. We have access to that, so we'll get it. But I would just have loved to seen how they would have matched up against AJ. But now it's skinny Batman versus whoever they want to put on him. We'll see when they play man.
Yeah. Um, as far as other injuries, Will Harris was added to their report. I know
Yeah,
he's
I
dealing
just
with
said
his
shin.
shin. You said
Yeah.
that right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's everything. It's both teams really, I mean, other than the AJ Brown injury, and we'll see what happens with CJ Gardner Johnson. I'm telling you right now, one
Ooh.
reason I forgot to mention this, the one
Yeah,
reason why I think they would go with Tristan McCollum is also because this thing just happened on Thursday. You
sure.
coaches, this. Coaches go with how they're practicing it, right? And
Mhm.
they have been practicing Maddox at safety this week, I can't imagine. And McCollum's been practicing as the backup safety. So I imagine that will just be the case if CJ Gardner Johnson cannot go. So we'll know more about that and talk about it more on the pregame show when that drops Sunday morning.
Yeah, I just
Retro
want to say
Cell.
this. The only reason why I mentioned not McCollum, because he doesn't have the experience. Again, the way that Clint Kubiak is coaching this thing, and they're an absolute juggernaut offensively. I really want to have experience in there if I'm on a staff. And McCollum just doesn't have that experience. I'd rather have Maddox at safety, but I get your point that you said earlier. Maddox has not been that since training camp. Do you want to switch this now 3 weeks later? It's not good if Gardner Johnson can't play. And he wants to play against his former team. Come on,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. He although he had some straight wasn't he asked about it? He's like, listen, they got rid of me, whatever.
I know, but guy, you know how it is. Come on.
Yeah, of
They
course. They
they
would love
they
that.
what yeah, so we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
definitely. All right, we'll move on to going through the game breakdown. Well, Adam, we've talked a lot about how awesome it is to go and attend a live sporting event, whether it's an NFL game, a Major League Baseball game, a college football game, and really there's nothing like attending sports in live and in person. Also, I feel the same way about concerts and comedy shows. I think it's great to get out there and see your favorite bands or hear some music that you really like in a big stadium with people who really enjoy it too. Same thing with comedy acts. Love having a good laugh. These are all things that you can get tickets for on the Game Time app. And Game Time makes it very, very easy and user friendly to get these tickets to see either your favorite teams play or your favorite performers live. All right. Because Game Time filters out the fluff with Game Time picks to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It can be really difficult and sort of nerve-wracking if you're trying to find the right ticket for the right event and you want to make sure you're seeing, the performer or the event in the right spot. And there's usually a lot of tickets available to places, so it can be a very difficult process, tedious process, but Game Time makes it very easy. And one of the best things about them is their super deal. Now, that's not me calling it a super deal. It's actually called the super deal. And it gives you the best value for the seat depending on what row, what section of the venue. And that's just one of the great functions of the Game Time app. We've talked about the view of the seat that you can get before you buy. And we've also talked about the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better price elsewhere. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. That's because they've got event cancellation protection and job loss protection. All very good things to have. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Hey, Adam, we said we were going to also announce pretty soon our next Ask an Eagle for the month of September. Last month was our first one ever on the Patreon platform, and it was with Mike Quick, and it got great reviews. People loved it. People got the chance to go into the live stream with us, our Patreon tier 2 and tier 3 members, and ask Mike Quick questions and have him interact with them, and he even loved it. Well, this time now, for this month, we're going to have former Eagles quarterbacks coach John DeFilippo, who's done a lot of great work with us on Patreon, but now people are going to have a chance to talk to him directly and have their questions directly answered by John. So looking forward to that being, we'll get that done pretty soon here for the Patreon platform.
Should be next week. Yeah, we're trying to get the date, and it'll be in the evening because John's on Eastern time. And we'll let you know. And then the Greg Cosell, we have Greg privately for Patreon every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern at the same time every week. As we do, if you can't make it, you post your questions there. We do our best to get to you. We got to a lot of the questions that were for people who couldn't make it, but Greg loves it. I mean, if he had more time, I know him, he probably would do an hour. Because he's got to produce a matchup show.
Yeah.
And he's also on the show. So he can't give us an hour in season, but he loves it. He as you know, he tells us privately how impressed he is with how smart everybody is. So it's pretty cool. And Greg tells you the truth. He doesn't hold back. He had to tell the truth of the tape.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you saw the show that it goes to the public. That's not public, that video, but it's only for Patreon. But the Inside the Tape show, I appreciate the comments we got. We got 100 and some on.
Yeah.
On the show we did, and even you could tell how many Hurts fans there are,
Mm-hmm.
and 90% of them who commented on there, they get it. They did get mad at Greg. They said, "Man, this sucks. He's got to do better." And then there are a couple people who just refuse to believe it. That's okay. The tape doesn't lie, but you don't have to accept it. But it's true. Hurts Hurts. I didn't want to speak bad of Jalen, but he had one of his worst games that we've seen in a while. We could have literally shown 9 or 10 plays where he didn't look good.
Yeah, yeah.
Pick
You
one
know,
example.
as I like to describe it, he played very gritty. He played very tough. He played very good. That's not really what we're debating. It was more about see the open receiver, hit the open receiver in cases that he didn't do at certain times that were really pivotal in the game. So, and
By the
some guy
way,
asked, like, why are we only pinpointing those times and not all the good ones. I'm like, well, we're not going to go through every play. I'm just, we were trying, Greg was making a specific point about him in this game missing, because everybody is saying, Kellen Moore, what's he doing? Why can't he scheme guys
Yeah,
open?
yeah.
And we wanted to show there are plenty of occasions here where guys were open and the
He
ball
schemed
didn't
him
go there.
open. Yeah, yeah. By the way, you just mentioned it, and as someone said, it had a great point on the comments on YouTube. You just said it. See it, throw it, just like you did 2 years ago, where he was phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, we've
He
seen
was
him do
so
it.
just
No one's saying he can't do it. He just,
yes. He's
you
done it
get into a
before.
funk, you may start
Yeah,
to second guess. The funny thing is this about Jalen Hurts. In fact, why don't we move this into the conversation about this game, a little bit offense versus defense here.
sure.
The really interesting thing I find about Jalen Hurts is that I think he's done a really good job, even this year, and probably working with Kellen Moore, as far as knowing when the blitz is coming and beating the blitz. When they're sending an extra man at him and he knows and sees it, he's done a good job of saying, especially when in the first game, when the Packers, they only came after him 8 or 9 times, but he beat them significantly when they
Did
did,
really well with it. Yep.
because
Week one.
because he knows it's coming and he knows where the open receiver is going to be. So he throws it, and he usually throws it very accurately. The odd thing about him, and this is where I kind of wonder what Dennis Allen's going to do, because Dennis Allen plays a lot of man coverage. Dennis Allen's not afraid to bring some interesting looks. But Jalen Hurts is doing well against the blitz. It's when the ones we pointed out on with Greg are he was not blitzed. He flushed himself out of the pocket because it's almost like he had too much time. And with that time, he felt the pressure as the pocket starts to form around him. When he's blitzed and he knows he's got to go, it's like bam, boom, see it, throw it. When he's got a couple of seconds, it seems that's when he starts to doubt, second guess, and then move off of his mark, which without keeping his eyes open. Now, he used to do a better job of keeping his eyes downfield. Lately, not as much. So if you're Dennis Allen and you like to play a lot of man, you like to bring a lot of pressure, you might be watching the tape saying, I'm going to be a little bit more selective on how I blitz this guy, because he's doing well against that. But
Sim
if my
pressures.
front four can pressure
Yeah.
him off the spot, then we win.
I'd actually sim pressure him and make him think one thing and do another.
Sure.
It's amazing. 2 years ago, he stuck that foot in the ground and he was unreal. Maybe the NFL's best deep thrower 2 years ago. He was phenomenal.
Mhm.
Shane Steichen did some smart things. He reduced what he asked him to do. Jalen handled what they asked him to do, and he's phenomenal, right? Last year, he dropped off significantly, dropped his eyes a lot, moved way too much. John T. Flippo and Cosell showed us that. We discussed this. Flip will be on, should be on this coming week. We'll see. We'll get John's views of what the offensive scheme looks like. He's a big fan of Kellen. He knows enough about Kellen's scheme, so John knows. I mean, John went through this with Wentz, getting when Carson was elite for only like a season, but he got Carson to not be so bullheaded and buy in, and he knows what it needs to look like, and we'll see what they can do with Jalen, how he bounces back. He's just got to be more decisive, man. And you mentioned this in passing, and it's so true. Hurts breaks himself down. The defense didn't break him down. He broke himself down. That
Right.
can't happen. That ruins the progression. Progression is dead. You want to know why Goddard doesn't get the football? Because Jalen broke himself down. When the first read is to Goddard and he moves to the right, the play's over. It's done.
Yeah. I want to start
It's
paying
done.
attention to this. I know we already know that when teams want to pressure him, they want to either send an extra man from his left and force him to his right, or you'll see stunting in the middle just in case he runs. They want to be like, they don't want to be full-fledged at the quarterback. They want to be like horizontally going to the quarterback, right? Stunting. So if he runs, that they can recover, but they're always trying to force him to his right. And I wonder if that's specifically not just because it's making him take half the field away, but usually on the left side is where his ex receiver AJ Brown and even a detached Dallas Goedert in 2x2s. Those are your two weapons, right? So it seems like all right, listen, we have to deal with him and Devontae Smith on the right side, but they're taking 2 out of the 3 away if they're making him only see the right side of the field. I'm going to start paying more attention to when Dallas Goedert's on his right. What do they do? Do they then try to, pressure him differently to get him to run a different way? So I'll start paying attention. Just, you can tell the teams try to pressure Jalen from his left and move him to the right more. The one thing that sticks out to me is in the blitzing that the Packers and the little bit of blitzing that the Packers and Falcons have done, they have not sent the house at him yet. If you remember
I
that
know. I
anonymous,
noticed.
the anonymous coach made headlines by saying in the offseason that the book is out. If you zero
Yeah.
blitz this
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
you're gonna throw him. Nobody's done that yet. I
Well,
mean,
it did
maybe
well
they
2 years
wanted
ago. It's
to,
the
but
blitz, by the
yeah,
way.
but this year they're only really giving him a 5-man pressure. But at times it's been working for the opponent. So we'll see what Dennis Allen tries to do there.
Yeah, I'm just it's I can't like because I asked Flip last year when John went through some tape breakdowns, and John would say, "Listen, you don't start dissecting why or your quarterback struggling in this case. When John coached Johnny Manziel and Jamarcus Russell. You go through the list of Carson Palmer. We mentioned Wentz, obviously Nick Foles, and many other quarterbacks. But John would say you have to wait till Monday. Let's say you play Sunday. You can't get into the weeds until Monday, till you bring him in, you sit down, you show him, you ask him, you tell him,
Mm-hmm.
this is where it is. 1, 2, 3. What did you see? And then you make your correction, and then you move on. You don't. And John says you don't make. He knows. And by the way, Jalen absolutely knows. Like, despite what people think, quarterback always knows.
Oh, sure.
He rushed himself. He's got a bad habit. Kevin Cobb, I may have mentioned on one of our shows, Kevin Cobb's career ended. Kevin Cobb had a very bad problem of rolling to his right without pressure and without it not being like it started in like a preseason game,
Mm-hmm.
and he stopped and he kept doing it. He rolled to the right without it wasn't even the play. He was afraid of getting hit or afraid of the pressure, and it snowballed and ruined his career.
Right.
And I'm not saying this is going to happen to Jalen, but unfortunately, Jalen did a lot of this stuff last year. He moved without being pressured. And that was one of the many issues that he had last season. And it's not like he doesn't know this. It's coached by the people want to know. Of course, it's coached. They show it to him on Monday morning. They show him
Of
after the
course.
game.
Yeah, they're going to say, why did this was where especially
Yeah.
Adam, to your point, when a certain play is designed to go to a certain player and that player is open by function of the scheme, right? And it doesn't go there and the protection was fine. That's the first question they ask. What did you see that you didn't want to put they get the ball there?
100%. And I'll give you another one. So, as a coach from another team told me when I can't get in the team, but the quarterback did not have a good game. It wasn't the Eagles. It was another team that hasn't had a good game over the last 2 weeks, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
He said that the guy missed like 6 checkdowns and which would have been 3 or 4 movement explosive plays. They showed it to him, whatever the day after, whatever they played, that one game, which was bad. Guy owned up to it. He goes, I know, I was just trying to make things happen. And this coach said he goes, no, we don't do that here. Your job is to take what's there and get rid of the football.
Yeah.
And he goes, I got it.
Smart football. That usually is the case.
Come on,
People
man.
seem to forget,
Jalen's
as great as Tom Brady was, like the last 8 years of his great career, when he was great, I mean, he was throwing the ball to James White and he was throwing the ball
checking it down, man. He made James White a player.
all the time. And he knew he
Yeah.
was going to do it right as you're coming from here. I'm just going to get my easy 5 to 6, get my easy 5 to 6, and then I'll pop 1 or 2.
That's why it's so funny because that's why James White for fantasy was so good, because if you're in a PPR league, you know he's going to get it. Now I will tell you, Derek Carr, when he struggles, I call him Caplan check down. He is so risk averse. There's something in Derek Carr's brain when he doesn't play well. And, he was getting criticized by one of his former teammates. I don't need to get into that right now publicly. So I don't know what happens with quarterbacks sometimes. I can't wait to talk to Flip about this because I want to ask him what happens. Because we didn't play the quarterback position. We didn't play football. I did at Penn Charter, not great, but Cosell play. By the way, great. One guy took a shot at, he never played. I'm like,
oh, come on. Not only did he play, he was also an all-city shortstop, and he was a good basketball
great athlete.
player.
Greg was a really good athlete. He didn't play football, but he was a really good basketball player and baseball player. But Greg is seen as the foremost authority on tape study.
Right.
I know for fact coaches that call him, they want to get his opinion. I mean, I can tell you
100%.
So anyway,
so finishing off on offense versus defense, I have 2 thoughts here.
Yeah.
One, I don't think this is going to be a vintage. Well, I don't think this is going to be a big Saquon Barkley game the way the first 2 games have been. I think the Saints, just from watching the Saints defensive front, they're not a big splashy name defensive front, but they're getting the job done. They're obviously been benefiting from having some leads. Chase Young, I watched on tape, and I thought he's been playing with some pretty good get off and doing a good job there. And their linebackers are good. I mean,
They're
Demario
really good.
Davis
Oh,
is an excellent line. He's not going to be
I love
missing
this guy.
tackles left and right. Gay is a fast linebacker. Willie Gay, Werner will come in sometimes. So I don't think you're going to see a big Saquon Barkley game. That I
It'd
just
be hard. Well, here's the thing: without AJ, now if Jalen plays it right, and one of my issues with Kellen Moore is where the hell have the backs been in the pass game? Not enough. I want the backs that they have to catch the football in this game. It's going to happen because I know the Eagles have an elite offensive line. We're pretty close to it, but you're playing that dome. Sometimes you can't hear. You don't have AJ. Check the ball down. If you don't have it, there's an outlet in every single NFL play.
yeah,
Check the damn ball down. If Wentz and Hurts, I swear it's the same thing, man. I get it. Hurts has got a big arm. We saw him 2 years ago do this.
right.
But if you don't have it, check the ball down. Don't run around and take unnecessary hits. You were talking about this in the last show. There's absolutely no reason when you don't have it, you don't have to run every time. Take the outlet, which could get you 5 to 7 yards. That's, by the way, the rule in coaching is 5 yards is explosive play. 5 yards or more is an explosive play. You'll take that
Mhm.
any day of the week.
Right. Absolutely. As far as the offensive line, Adam, I feel like they should be able to hold up. I mean, the Saints they don't jump out to me as having Chase Young's playing well. And I guess Cam Jordan comes off the bench now, right? Because they start Granderson as more of a rundown
He's
guy. And
really he's a great story. Carl
he's,
Granderson is
yeah.
one of these, and he's made a lot of money. He's an undrafted free agent. They stuck with him.
Hmm.
I give the Saints credit. I mean, they stuck this thing out. He got paid a couple years ago. He's long. Peyton Turner, I mentioned this in the last show. He's been hurt a lot.
Banged up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. He's super tall, super long
Yeah.
out of University of Houston.
But I'm not
Um,
really worried about pass pro with the Eagles. I'm a little bit more. I am a little concerned just though with crowd noise for like the
mhm.
real first time is for center and right guard, penalties, false starts, things that might put the Eagles behind the sticks offensively because they're still adjusting to the new center right guard, and this is gonna be the loudest that
True.
they played in the first
Yep.
3 games.
No, that it has to be mentioned. That's a great point. That's a concern. You don't know what that's going to look like. The communication, as Todd Harriman's told us when we talked to him for was it Chalk Talk last month?
Hmm.
That is a major issue. Handling crowd noise in that dome.
Yeah.
It's condensed. It's hard, man. We'll see what happens. So we're gonna be looking at that in the game.
Don't be behind the sticks too much. I think, yeah, listen, there's going to be at least one or two. You always expect it. It happens every game I watch at the Superdome. Somebody jumps off sides, they have trouble, but don't have those 6 or 7 penalties that really put you behind the sticks. Every time, I feel like every time I've covered an Eagles game there, they've always been close. And for the most part, they've been decided on some really bad penalties that have happened on the offense. So hopefully the Eagles will have that ironed out. And so that's offense versus defense. We are, I guess, contractually obligated before the end of this podcast to talk about the Eagles defense versus the Saints offense. So let's get to that in 1 second. First, let's just take a pause to hear from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Scholler, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. If you can't make it in, just visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. Yeah, we have to, because this is what we do. We preview games. We have to talk about this Eagles defense facing the Saints offense, if that's what we want to call it. So, all right. So here's the positive, Adam, is that the running scheme that the Eagles are going to see on Sunday against the Saints is very similar to the one that the Atlanta Falcons run. So you're going to see a lot of wide zone. So that's the positive, is that you may have looked awful, but at least you get a chance. At least like you're not getting something new thrown at you. There's going to be a lot of motion. There's going to be a lot of under center. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, and this time you gotta have to play it better.
Wide zone, mid zone, you're going to see it.
Yep.
It, because I know Greg said when we talked to him the other day, he can't. He says I got some good stuff for you guys on the Saints because he I know when he gets excited, he's bursting the seams because this is a new scheme that they're running, completely different from the schemes that they're running before. And Clint Kubiak's, I've heard a lot about him, and now Gary's son, and obviously the Shanahan connection, and Mike Shanahan was the king of the stretch play, and with got Terrell Davis in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Which is now called wide zone, as Kevin Stefanski always calls it. So I'm looking forward to see what this thing looks like when we talk to Greg on Sunday. But look, it's as Vic said, Fangio said on Thursday, he knows what's coming. It's not a secret.
Right.
And there are certain rules that you have. They have to get the rules straight. Can't keep running laterally. That was a joke. I mean, that was just honestly, I felt like they could have run for 300 yards if the Falcons didn't have to throw to come from behind. I mean, I felt like they could have run for 300. They were just behind, so they had to figure out a way. But yeah, this could be a long day. But look, okay, the run defense has not been good. It's been awful so far. There's nowhere to go but up, right? We'll
Theoretically, yes. I mean, listen, first of all, they're probably going to be, there's no doubt they're working on it. Even Vic Fangio said, I got to teach this better. Secondly, Jason Avant and Quinn Michael did a really good job of bringing this up. I'd be surprised if they continue with it. But what they tried to do was basically play their defensive tackles head up over the guards and then their ends in the wide nine. So that left really big gaps in C gaps that I guess Vic thought his linebackers would be able to flow down and cover. And I don't understand why he thought that, but they couldn't. They obviously couldn't. And not only that, I mean, they got outside the C. The edge setting edge setting was just as bad too. So we'll see. But I also think one thing that could play into the Eagles' hands, unless the Saints do something different, which is what the Falcons did. Remember, the Falcons were not under center week 1. They went under center a lot week 2. I imagine that was to get downhill against this Eagles defense because they saw against Green Bay that you could run on it. But Adam, the Saints play that typical Shanahan style offense you're talking about. They'll play with a fullback and a tight end. They'll play with 2 tight ends. They'll get Taysom Hill on the field. So when opponents do that, usually Vic and his types counter with a 5-man front. The Falcons did not. The Falcons ran out of 11 personnel, which meant Vic was countering with nickel. He only had 4 down linemen.
You talked about that. Yep.
Right. So I wonder, will the Saints be the Saints and put 2, like a fullback and a tight end, and make the Eagles play that 5-man front? Or will they say, you know what? Let's play 3 wide receivers and run downhill just like the Falcons did, because we want the Eagles in their nickel front. We want just 4 down linemen.
Right. So basically, when they go 11 personnel with Olave and Rashid Shaheed, that's my guy, Rashid Shaheed. We'll get to him in a second, but it'll be Cedric Wilson, another veteran receiver who got usurped by Tyreek Hill with the Dolphins. He was supposed to be a big-time starter for them, and they traded for Tyreek. Oops. Mm-hmm. And A.T. Perry, I like. Hopefully he gets clear. He should be able to be available. He's a big guy. He's got, he doesn't run all that well, but he's a contested catch guy, 6'3.5". He can play. But Rashid Shaheed, so we have some really good intel on him. So basically, he came in 2022 as an undrafted free agent out of Weber State. Didn't have great college numbers. There was an injury somewhere in his college career. We talked to someone in scouting who actually had his area. And this kid could flat out fly. I remember his first ever game against the Cardinals. I never heard of him. Mm-hmm. They put him in because he was a special teams returner to start. They put him in. He ran a post route. It might have been like 60 yards. I don't have it in front of me, but it was ridiculous. I'm like, because for fantasy, we're all on this. We're like, man, I got to get this guy on my team. Can he play? We don't know anything about him. He's been a great story, man. He's a starter for them. Really good player. He's, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but it's just, other clubs screwed up. They should have had this guy's a stud. Really good.
I thought the biggest beneficiary of the new offense that Clint Kubiak was bringing in was going to be Chris Olave, because A, he's really talented, and B, we know that this offense gives you a little bit more slants, more layup routes, more open spaces to get the ball and create. And I just was waiting for this to really make Chris Olave from a 1,000-yard receiver to like a 13 or 1,400-yard receiver. But it turns out, as you're mentioning, after 2 weeks, Rashid Shaheed has been a bigger beneficiary. And this offense in him has somehow unlocked Derek Carr for 2 weeks, because Derek Carr is driving the ball in a way that we have not seen in a long time, maybe ever, out of Derek Carr. I don't know how long that can last.
I know.
He's obviously comfortable when because he's been given time. Their ability to run the ball, let's just call it like it is, as the 40 points and all that, they're running the ball explosively. And because of that, when they go do their play action, Derek Carr has a lot of time. If you watch them play the Cowboys last week, there is so much space between the linebackers and the safeties, because the linebackers are biting so hard on Alvin Kamara that you and I could throw those balls in those windows.
Ready for this one? Ready for this one? This is insanity. Carr only completed 11 passes for 243.
Yeah, see, that's not sustainable. I
Yeah,
honestly think this game is going to be a lot closer than the doom and gloom people are thinking. So the Saints offensive line is playing well, Adam, with Fuaga now, Talisi Fuaga from Oregon State as their left tackle. But it's still, to me, from a personnel standpoint, it's not a phenomenal offensive line. It's sort of like the way we talk about the 49ers, right? Or the Rams, or some other of those Shanahan McVay teams where the offense makes the offensive line look better. So if you can just stop Kamara, this is the thing. If they can clean up the run and get the Saints into some second down and third and manageable for them, not for the Saints, right? 2nd and 5, 3rd and 6. I guarantee you the Derek Carr that we've seen for the last 5 years will be back. And that's good for the Eagles.
He could be such a train wreck. He's something with him. He's so talented. He's never come close to the player he should be. I've talked to so many people who've worked with him. They like the guy off the field, but it's taking responsibility, not pointing the finger, or being coachable, or being better. And then the guy's wide open. He doesn't throw it.
Right.
Nobody knows what I don't know. He's so frustrating. He's a very frustrating quarterback. He's very gifted, but no offense to Hurts. Carr's a more talented quarterback. Hurts was just way better than him in 22. Carr hasn't had any close to a season like Hurts had in 22.
No.
But Jalen's shown he can do it. Carr's never been a consistent quarterback, man, over his career. He's played way longer. And then, of course, his brother was the first pick overall in 02, never became a player.
Right. He's known for getting sacked left and right all the time.
And wearing that glove with the Panthers, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Ridiculous.
That.
Anyway.
All right, so if the Eagles are not corrected in time, then we know that Alvin Kamara is probably going to have a good game. At least he's been having a rebirth.
Kamara, dude, he's on that fake that turf, right? Whatever the hell they have in Superdome, on that stuff. His ability to cut, he could still cut upfield. That was the thing that surprised me, because everyone's put him out to pass. He didn't really play well last year. Carr kept checking it down to him. He just went for the ball outfield. And Kamara was like, it's so many games where he got the ball within like 5 yards, just checking it down.
Yeah.
It was overkill. But now, these last 2 games, because I know he wants a new deal. I mean, he's got some leverage, but bottom line is it's only 2 games. And you make a fair point. It's only 2 games. Could the Eagles' run defense, could it be bad again? Of course. The Colts got the Super Bowl with a bad run defense. Bill Polian told us that 5 years ago. But then they made a change, and it changed everything late in the season. But maybe Vic's got to simplify it, which is what Bill told us. That's what Tony Dungy did. You don't do more, you do less. You don't have the guys overthink. Just do this. And that's what happened. So maybe Clint Hurt and Vic maybe they have to do that.
Yeah, and then I would say as far as pass defense needing to be cleaned up, if I'm going to be worried about a guy who's not obvious, like a Shaheed or Olave, see, the Saints really haven't needed to hit their number 3 receiver, whether that's Juwan Johnson flexed out, or Taysom Hill, or Foster Moreau. I mean, they don't really have. They got Cedric Wilson, right? But he does. I don't even know if he
didn't get the ball.
But we've seen the interior receivers of the Packers, and we've seen Ray McLeod really chew the Eagles up on the inside. So that's why I say don't look at the numbers of the Saints right now. Just know that where the Eagles have been leaky is where a Jawan Johnson or a Foster Moreau for the Saints could do some damage there if the Eagles don't have their pass rush going. So those are
So
some
on,
matchups I'd be worried about.
yeah, I would. Well, Moreau did score. He's healthy. You know, he had the health scare. He's healthy. He scored week 1. He is their starting tight end now. Juwan Johnson's their move tight end. Moreau's more in line. And oh yeah, and then they'll have for goal line carries. You'll see Jamal Williams come in there. It's kind of what he knows.
Yeah.
Goal line back.
Oh my God, Jamal! If the Eagles aren't right, the way Jamal Williams runs,
Runs
he
hard,
might
violent.
he could have a J.K. Dobbins line of like 126 yards on 11 carries. Have you noticed Dobbins? He's averaging like 11 yards a
incredible.
carry. Yeah, it's been unbelievable.
Jamal Williams is a banger. He's not explosive at all, but
I know, but against the Eagles
finisher.
defense, all you got to do is get through.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Right? Yeah, he could all of a sudden run instead of rushing for 2.1 yards per carry, run like for 5 yards per carry. It's look, it's one cut up in this Shanahan Kubiak scheme, which they're running. With that zone cut, man, Kamara's patient because that's the thing about Kamara. Maybe he isn't as explosive as he used to be, but his ability to be patient and then cut up field, he still can do that. And I can't wait to see what Greg says about Kamara. He loved Kamara for that draft at the 7, whatever the hell it was. 7, what year was he drafted? 17? Yes.
Yeah.
He wouldn't shut up. I remember talking to him for that draft. He goes, you ever heard of, we didn't know how to pronounce his last name. It's Kamara, but we thought it was Kamara. We didn't know.
Mm-hmm. I still probably say Kamara.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You said it like 15 times, but it's okay. But he says, you got to see this kid. Nobody knows about him. He's a sleeper. I'm like, okay. I don't know. Yeah. I know Greg knows Sean Payton, but I don't know if he knew anything. But the bottom line is, Kamara's a stud. He won't be a Hall of Famer, but he's really good. I'm glad for him because everyone's writing him out to pasture at 29 years old. And he still got it. Still got it.
Absolutely. All right. So that is the challenge that lies ahead for the Philadelphia Eagles as far as stopping the Saints. So I can't even believe we're talking about the Saints offense like this. I mean, I went to the year, I did the week 1 NFL preview, and I said the best thing to happen to the Saints was getting Clint Kubiak and adding this kind of offense. I said that should really help Olave get some extra yards this year, but I just don't think that there's enough playmakers on this team to be prolific.
Here's the crazy thing, though.
40 points a game.
I know, and Carr's only thrown it 42 times over 2 games.
It's going to come back to earth. It's going to come crashing back. Listen, not crashing. They do have, this is a talented team. Their defense, see, that's the funny thing is the defense has always been very talented. It's been waiting to not have to carry the offense around all day. Sure. And finally, they don't have to do that anymore. And that's what really makes this team dangerous is because they do have a good D. But I just, this thing has to settle itself out over the next few weeks.
I'm Derek Carr's annoyed me for his entire career because he's one of these guys. You see the guy throw the football, you go, wow. I saw him in the Senior Bowl. I mean, the kid, you go, wow, this kid should be special. He's not. He's got ability, but he's never been able to put it together. I'll have to look up if Vic's gone up against him before, but I'm interested to see how they play him. I'm really interested. You don't want to give Carr could make every throw. The way he's running, the way he's rolling with his Kubiak system, he's played in West Coast before, but this is old school West Coast. I'm interested to see if Vic and his group of coaches could figure something out to slow this train down.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see. All right, we're going to cover this even more comprehensively Sunday morning inside the Birds pregame show. Myself, Adam, and of course Greg Cosell. So make sure you listen around for that. We're also going to have Andrew DeCecco's rookie diary coming out on the platforms pretty soon that he's been doing with Will Shipley. So that'll be up. And hopefully by now you've checked out Q&A. You've checked out Gun on One. Great interview with Barrett Brooks. Barrett was very candid about the Eagles. It was strong. And of course there's Inside the Tape.
I haven't seen Barrett in a while, but this is a great interview. And Barrett was so candid. I wasn't sure because it was bad last week. I was curious about how he would handle it. Players, we know Q&A when they're critical, they don't hold much back. But I don't know Barrett to go all in sometimes, and he went in a little bit. That was good.
He dug in. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.